Hi everyone. I recently purchased a GreenStalk and Garden Tower 2 about 5 months ago, and I have just had so much fun getting started with vertical gardening that I wanted to go ahead and create a review of these two really great systems. I think they're two of the best available on the market for vertical gardening for backyard growers. So I think they have a lot of great features. Some of them, they're very similar in what they do well. And in other areas, there are more differences between the pros and the cons when you compare these two systems. So I wanted to go through and offer my thoughts on where these two systems shine and where they have some unique differences that you might want to consider as you think about purchasing these and think about which one's right for you. First of all, they're very similar in terms of their soil capacity, their mobility features, their durability, the variety of plants that you can grow, their aesthetics, and their quality of looks, and in their accessibility. I think you'd be well served by having either one of these in your backyard. They both look great. They make gardening very easy and accessible to get started, whether you're a beginner or somebody who's just looking for more increased access to gardening without having to bend and move around a lot in a raised bed or a row garden. You can grow so many different types of plants in either one of these if you get a little bit creative about placement and exposure to light, and you pay attention to what each individual plant needs and where it should go in the system. And both systems have great instructions for how to do that well. So those are areas where they're quite similar. Both of them come with options to allow them to be moved around on wheels. The GreenStalk sells two different types of wheel kits, and the Garden Tower 2 also sells a caster set. And soil capacity, you can do so much in just a, a few square feet of gardening space. So both of them do really well in maximizing the soil potential. In the Garden Tower 2, you can grow as much as 150 plants. So they do a lot with a very little. However, some areas where they are a bit different that I wanted to mention um, are ease of setup. I would say that both systems are pretty quick and easy to get started with. However, the Garden Tower 2 made that process so simple and so lightweight. You can see from the video at the start of this review that the components of the Garden Tower 2 are just really easy to maneuver and stack one on top of the other. This system is composed of rings that allow you to just pour soil in the top. And once those rings are all set up and you can go ahead and pour your soil in, you're pretty much done, other than if you want to go ahead and set up the unique vermicomposting system in the middle of the tower. Um, with the GreenStalk, that is a bit more of a process. You have to fill each tier with soil and one by one stack those tiers on top of the other. So if you're going with the original 5 tier, stacking up 5 tiers. If you're going with the 7 tier leaf, go ahead and stacking up 7 tiers. So that can get a bit tricky, and you'll want to consider that in terms of your comfort level. Maybe you might need a buddy or might ask a couple of people to do this process for you, depending on, again, your needs and comfort level. In terms of space efficiency, again, they both do so much with so little, but I would say that the Garden Tower 2 is a unique feature that makes the system even more efficient. It takes advantage of the central column of the planter by, as mentioned, using a vermicomposting system, which allows you to take just a handful of worms and a handful of kitchen scraps and just a little bit of, whether it's cardboard or shredded brown paper that you want to add. That central column then becomes a composting system, which even further maximizes just how much space efficiency is happening in this tower. GreenStalk doesn't quite have the ability to capture a lot from the middle of these tiers, other than allowing the roots to spread into them. So that's one little area of difference that's unique. Watering and irrigation is another area to consider. The GreenStalk's unique feature is built around making watering very simple and easy. There is an upper basin at the top of the tower where you just pour water in through a hose or watering can, and you can go ahead and fill that basin up, and the water will simply trickle down to each tier and be evenly dispersed into the roots directly through small discs that sit at the base of each tier. So that makes watering a breeze. Plus, GreenStalk also has an automatic watering system, which is a hose system that can be connected to your home's main hose, and that drips right into the upper basin. You can set that up with an automatic watering system like Rainbird, and that makes it an easy set it and forget it for your watering. With the garden tower too, there is a little bit less going on in terms of irrigation systems. However, you can pretty easily water this garden. They recommend going in from the top where the soil is exposed and allowing water to go ahead and disperse through the column. And you can do that with a hose or a watering can. So it is by no means a difficult watering process, but GreenStalk has some features that make it just a touch easier. And I would also say that cost is probably the biggest difference between these two. The GreenStalk is quite a value at $149 right now for the original 5 tier. It makes it so easy to get into gardening and get started. It's very budget friendly. On the other hand, the Garden Tower 2 at $379, I believe it is right now, is a bit more of a stretch. However, something to keep in mind is that the composting system is built into this, so that does come with a value. If you were to go ahead and purchase a separate composting tumbler, that could be anywhere up to $100 or more, depending on the type of system that you're interested in. So, keeping that in mind, the Garden Tower 2 is not a bad value. And if you're interested in growing really high quality plants in a really high quality soil that pretty much builds itself, Garden Tower 2 is a really great choice. On the on the other hand, the GreenStalk is another great option, and it's very easy to get started with. So you truly couldn't go wrong with either one of these systems. I know I'm really happy to be having both of them to experiment with and see what works best in both of these. However, all things considered, I think the Garden Tower 2 has just the slightest edge with all of those just different unique features like the vermicomposting system. So at the end of the day, I find that one to be just a little bit more interesting to work with. But I love both of these. I'm really happy to have them, and I hope that you might consider exploring working with either one of these to get started with gardening and make it an easy process on yourself. So if you find this content helpful, please consider giving it a like and leaving some comments below. Happy gardening!